Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Oyo ni Fulupera ni Mashapa. Mananyana wa Muvenda. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, a veteran in this channel, welcome back for yet another exciting episode of Risk, Money and Insurance. And so today we're doing a story time because I got burnt and I want to share it with you. So, the story time today, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I post a new video, which will be on a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. So the story time today is about, a property deal that went wrong. I think for the longest time, I wasn't really ready to share. But sometimes some things happen and you take some lessons, you take your L and you move forward. And honestly, for me, after doing so much research, reading, so many books and talking to people who have been investing in the property market for a while, I wasn't exempt from this happening. So now you may be asking, what really happened, with this property deal? So I was a young professional. After a year of working, I didn't have a car, didn't have anything. And I was saving really aggressively. And I thought to myself, I'm tired of renting. I actually want to invest in property. And the normal jazz, I started going on Property 24. I had private property as well. I was looking around and I specifically needed, a new development. I just felt, if I'm doing this, let me just get something new, be the first one to occupy this thing and fill it out and everything. And also another reasoning behind new development was the fact that, if I reserve this property, by the time they finish with the construction, the value of the property would have gone up by at least 50 to 60K. So that's what I was looking at. And I was like, okay, by the time, I will actually buy it when it's cheaper, relatively cheaper, and the value will continue to increase, and then some years down the line I can decide to rent this out or sell it or just keep it in my property portfolio. All right, cool. So I shop around and I stumbled upon this beautiful new development in Randburg, and I decided this is it. I told you guys, when I do my shopping or when I'm looking for something, it has to speak to me. That property, 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom, spoke to me on all levels, and I was thinking, this is a nice area, so I'm gonna go there and check it out and see how it goes, talk to the people there, find out on the progress, where they're at, when do they expect to finish and everything. So I did my homework. I spoke to my family and I was like, guys, I'm ready to commit. This is long term, I know and understand, but I've got savings. I'm willing to go into this, and I'll be saving up money so that I pay this thing. Instead of 20 years, I'm aiming at less than 10 years. I had the whole plan, the whole shabam. I was ready. Okay, cool. We go on now. We see the property. We're ready. When I went to the plot, they hadn't started with construction. So there was nothing literally on that plot. So they were literally selling me, a plan that was on paper. And the agent there was explaining to me everything, the whole process, the OTP, and, the fact that when I'm ready, when I've finally settled to say this is what I want, I should just take the copies, the physical copies with me so that I can fill them out, sign them, and then return them, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to take my time. So don't expect to hear from me now because I'm still deciding and I'm still trying to make up my mind. And this was somewhere around Jan, right? So I still continue with my shopping, and at that point I knew new development, we're not considering existing properties and everything because of the reasons that I've stated. And then we go on, and I went in circles. I would find something that I love, and then when I see it, I'll have an excuse as to why I wouldn't want to go for it, or find something that I love that was way above my budget, and I was going for at least be below 800K. I'm not willing to go above 800K. So some of them will be overpriced but really nice. Some of them will just be in odd areas. So I was like, okay, cool. The Randburg apartment seemed to be working. It seemed to be the one. right? And it fits all criteria. It has spoken to me. So let's do this. So I remember I'm like, God, I'm praying here. This is it. And I fill out the forms and everything. I read, I highlight stuff, and I'm like, okay, this looks okay and stuff. And I finally send it through, and that was beginning of February. So beginning of February, this was like last year, right? Beginning of Feb, we do that. And they say that we acknowledge your OTP, whatever. Now you need to pay a reservation fee of 20,000. Well, I was aware because it was stipulated there, and they gave me the banking details and everything. So I was like, it's fine. I'm reserving this apartment anyway, and I love it. And so why not? Paid the reservation fee of like 20K. And I wasn't hesitant because I was dealing with a reputable developer, right? So you wouldn't expect anything shady from a reputable developer. And of course I can't mention their names lest they sue me, but they had built an apartment, right, like a bunch of apartments next to where I was staying, right? And I was happy with their work, and I knew that whatever they're building is going to be amazing. So there was no doubt about the quality of the work that they will produce. But lo and behold, after now paying the reservation fee, so the whole plan was by end of June, the building will be done and you can occupy the property, right? I'm excited. I'm like, June is coming. I'm going to be owning an apartment. I'm so excited. Like, woo, those kind of vibes. So then it happens that a month before June, they send a letter and they say, well, we're moving the occupation date to next year, end of March. So I write back and I'm like, how? This letter just says we're moving to end of March, but like no one is explaining what's going on. Can you please tell me what's going on? Silence. And that was the beginning of a very long couple of months with, me writing emails, me calling, and being moved from one pillar to post with no response. Or like people who are helping me always telling me that, oh, I'm not the right person to help you. You need to be helped by this person. And this person saying the same thing. You'll need to be helped by this person. I don't deal with that. A whole couple of months of actually that going on and on and on. So I'm like, you can't even, explain to me why you're moving the occupation date, because now you're messing up my plans. Interest rates are low. I wanted to take advantage of low interest rates because I know I've saved enough money. So I can put in a lot of money into this thing and actually borrow when it's actually still cheaper. So I'm telling them all these things and they're just like, girl, you just have to wait it out. So now we're like, okay, cool. It goes on. We're doing back and forth and stuff. So I decided I'm fed up. I want to get out of this contract. I then contact a lawyer and I say, well, this is what I want to do. This is what happened and whatever. I state my reasons and everything. The lawyer's like, no, clearly they're in breach. So let's write them a letter of demand and get your money back and get you out of this contract. I'm like, yes, this is working. And also their service has been so bad. I just feel like if I can get out, this is fine. So we write the letter of demand. They come back with another letter. They say, well, an OTP, which is an offer to purchase, is a legally binding agreement. You can't just get out. And I'm like, I understand it's legally binding, but like both of you and I have got, positions in this thing, and you haven't really kept your end of the baggage, and you are not even communicating why you haven't kept your end of the baggage. And they're like, shh, silent. So now we're like, okay, are you going to respond or like what must happen? They're like, it's a legally binding agreement. When we finish building, you still need to come and actually now, be in this thing. Okay, I contact my bank as well. I'm like, okay, what can be done? And my bank was like, listen, this is a contract between you and the developer. Tina, we're a third party to the transaction because of financing, but Oksalayo, you're on your own. I was like, well, this is a very sticky situation that I, have found myself in. This is an apartment I really wanted. But like now things are just becoming sour every single day. So we continue with the back and forth, right? But there is no resolution. They're saying, well, you are literally stuck in this contract, legally binding, you're not getting out. But I'm saying, well, can we now consider your part, what you have been playing, the role you have played, the reason why I want to get out? Are we considering that? And also what I'm losing out by remaining and waiting for you to build? They're like silent. So now I talk to my mom. I'm like, oh, at this point, this is like the end of the year. I am so tired. I just feel like I've prayed, I've cried, I've done everything. I've written so many letters. You never know the importance of, writing a letter and like involving lawyers until you need them. So I got to that point where I was like, I'm so tired of doing all of this. If they want to keep the money, they can keep the money. I want out. My mom is like, no, 20K. Are you sure? Like, that's a lot of money. So she calls around family members like, yo, do you know anyone who can assist? This is the situation. And then we found out that my uncle was once into retail, for like a couple of years, 10 years or so. And he was like, I can actually help. So he comes, he's like, send me the contract, send me the communication, send me everything. Let's look into this. And he's like, no, they're taking advantage. We write another letter. They come back, they're like, no. I'm like, what will it take? I just want out. I don't even want the money anymore. What will it take? So we write another letter and we say, you can keep the money. Let's just terminate this contract. And they come back and say no again. But this time with the no, it came with a condition. They say, we will try to do everything reasonably possible on our side to sell your unit at the same price you bought it for. Because by then the prices had moved from like 777 to somewhere around 824. So they're like, we're not gonna now sell it at 824, but like 779, which you bought it for. And I was like, okay, cool. But now, what assurance do I have that you guys are going to do anything reasonable, like you're going to do everything, possible to actually sell this apartment? And they're like, oh, professionals, whatever. I'm like, but you haven't been acting like professionals in the last year and the back and forth we've been having, but asikolapo. And then they say, if we don't find anyone to buy the apartment, then you will have to take occupation when we finish. So I'm like, Lord, it has to be done. It has to be done. And now this is like Jan the following year, right? And I remember it went to Feb as well with the back and forth where they finally say, we will sell it to someone who's willing and whatnot. And we had like a week-long fasting prayer at church. And like my prayer is like, God, I want to get out. I know I was the one who prayed and said it's speaking to me, but I want to get out of this. And at the end of the month, they then said to me, we found someone and we're going to refund you your money. You can get out. And I was like, thank you and goodbye. Because that was really bad. The emotions and the back and forth were just ridiculous. And it got me to say, when I was reflecting on the whole thing, to just think about, what could I have done differently? Because I think when things were just going south and, they were like throwing this, it's a legally binding agreement, as if I just woke up and decided, no, I'm actually changing my mind, I cannot do this anymore. They went in, to drill, and they went back, they say, the contract. So there was a clause in the contract which actually said, the occupation date is the 30th of June, but they're not guaranteeing that this will be the actual occupation date. And that's where the problem started. Because if you're not guaranteeing, they actually also added the fact that they will notify me, right? At least, within 30 days of the actual occupation date to say, well, we are moving the occupation date to this date. So if my lease is ending, then I can extend it or whatnot. And that clause was literally the one they were using, like they were holding on to say, we have this clause. We didn't really say is the 30th. And now it's a thing of where we're now starting to ask, does this mean you can move the occupation date by 5 years and I still have to wait until you have built? And at that time, they had only started with the foundation, and this was beginning of the year. They just started with the foundation and they were claiming, no, we're almost done, which later on we discovered that they actually just didn't have the budget, right? So there was a period where construction wasn't happening at all because they didn't have the budget. And now I'm like, I'm concerned. If you didn't even have the money and now you starting again, how can I be sure that you're not going to use substandard materials and all of that? How do I know that the quality now won't be compromised in the long run? So a lot of issues came up, and I think when you get into a contract, that's when I realized that when you get into a contract, make sure, especially with these long-term things, make sure that you know, there's a way for you to get out of it as well. Because when I got into it, I didn't think, you know, a few months down the line I'll be in a position where I say, I'm done with these people, I just want out. And they kept on saying, well, this is a legally binding agreement, so listen, you're not going anywhere, there's nothing that you're going to do, you're going to remain here. So find a way out. Like, termination clauses become really important, right? To say, how do we then terminate this contract? And also just get a lawyer to have a look over it. And when my lawyer looked at it, he was like, well, this is a standard, it's a really standard contract. There wasn't anything, well, I guess perhaps the occupation date stuff, those were like really like intricate details that they were just using to hold on to them. And you know, it's like, get someone to look at those things, at those details, to say, well, 1 2 3 1 2 3. And also secondly, know your fighters. Hey, know who to contact, what to do, where, why, when, because they become really important, especially for this kind of contracts. And also, like, when I went, at that time I was even reading the Consumer Protection Act, guys, because I was like, I need help, lawyers are expensive. Now if we have to drag this matter to court, I'm gonna end up spending way more, you know, than, you know, us just settling this amongst ourselves. But like, the other party wasn't willing. So just knowing who your fighters are and who to go to when things like go south, that's really important. Like, having your fighters and like them being ready in line, and hopefully you won't need your fighters because you would have done, you know, your homework and you would be aware of what's going on. But in a nutshell, that is essentially what happened. And like, I was so happy, Shane, when they gave me my money back, because I had lost hope. I had literally said, this is not happening. So yeah, I feel like from the whole experience, contractors or like builders or like property companies can be real bullies, because as a young person, how do I afford legal fees to fight them in court and say, you know, extending, you know, the occupation date by more than a year, which even though they said like end of March, they later on extended it again to like September. And I'm like, so are we playing this game now where you just continue to extend the date and I have to remain in this contract? So yeah, they can be real bullies. So just make sure that you are protected. And even with the contract that you're getting into, have someone like your own lawyer, because those contracts are actually drafted by their lawyers. So of course their lawyers will try to put in clauses and terms and conditions in there to protect them. And you as a consumer coming into the contract, you might actually not be that much protected. So having someone like look at those kind of contracts and actually make suggestions to say, well, we need to amend certain things in this contract to make sure that, you know, my client is also protected. That is really important. And you're actually allowed to do that. So they can't just say, oh, this is a contract and you just have to sign it. If you feel that there are certain things in the contract that you are not comfortable with, then those issues must be addressed before, you know, you sign and everything. But anyways, guys, so that was the story. This one had a happy ending. I connected with a lot of people who never got their money back. Some developers are like kind to say, well, you can walk away, but you can't get your money back. Some developers will keep you in it too, and like they will be pulling that string saying, well, it's a legally binding agreement, so you have to just wait. And even if they finish construction after 5 years or 6 years, then you have to wait. So when you're buying new developments, especially those ones that, you know, they haven't even started with construction or whatever, just be careful and look out for such things. So thank you guys for coming. I know that was like, you know, heavy, but don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you guys so much. I will see you in the next video. Mwah. Bye.